as you can see, I'm not the biggest person in the world. It took me till about 18 to get to 5'5". So imagine this, a 14-year-old young black guy that is, I was a lot bonier than I am now, if that's possible. So very small stature. I did not have a lot of confidence. I did not have a large voice. And I also like to play outside in the sun. And when you're my complexion, what does playing out in the sun do?
Makes you beautiful.
It makes you beautiful. The one thing that it made, a lot of people told me that it made me black. Real black. And to the point where it was striking to other black people to see me walking in my own skin. They would ask my mom, "How you let that boy get so black? Put him in the shade." And so I grew up very much, to which my mom would cuss him out. She wasn't going to play it. But to which the effect that had on my psyche was that I was small, dark, and dangerous to somebody, right? And that took a lot of my voice away. So I started to try to really find places where I could be black and be proud of myself. But I ended up at a mostly white boarding school in Tappahannock, Virginia. And I ended up there because of a girl named Hope. Whenever you go to boarding school, they make you visit the boarding school first and stay on something called an overnight to make sure that you don't miss your parents too much, you're not gonna cry, all that kind of stuff, right? So we went to the overnight, me and my mom dropped me off. Of course, small, black, skinny, but also looking for a community. And I met a young woman named Hope, and she said, "Come on over here, come with me." And so we went on, and she took me to the black side of campus, and it was immediately things that I could identify with. There was green beans, there was fried chicken, there was collard greens, there was mac and cheese, and then everybody had cooked up in this kitchenette in one of the dorms, and we all sat down, we had dinner, and Hope told everybody to look out for me the next year, and just make sure that I was safe and seen and taken care of. And that was the first time anybody had been like, "Hey, make sure this little black guy is taken care of and safe." And that was really important to me. And so I ended up attending the boarding school next year because I was like, I found my tribe, I found my people. All I wanted was to be proud, black, and safe, right? So ended up there, and we had to, boarding school is very intense, right? Every moment of your day is planned out from the time you wake up at 9:20 to the time you go to bed at 8:30 or supposed to. Every minute is planned out. So we had to do extracurricular activities were mandatory after school, and so I was also not good at sports, something that's not very also not very cool for a black guy to do. Like I couldn't play basketball, and they were like, "What? You're not giving us musty bowls?" And I was like, "No, I'm not do any of that." I ran track. I was real fast, but they didn't have a track and field. They had a cross country. I got lost and chased by geese. Sports were not my thing. So I ended up, but the one thing I could do was I could beatbox, like really good, like Biz Markie, really good beatbox. There was a acapella group at the school, and they sang. And Hope was the director, and we went around, and they went around singing Negro spirituals and contemporary gospel. And one day I had walked in, and they were singing it, and I really liked it, and I just started beatboxing because I like doing hip hop or anything. So I was like beatboxing, you know what I'm saying, going off, and they were like, "Hey, you can beatbox?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's fun." And they were like, "Well, come on, do it with us. We have an arrangement that you can work with." So I joined Soul Voices, and that was my extracurricular activity. After school, I would go practice with Soul Voices. They would sing, I would beatbox. We traveled all up and down the East Coast, over the country. They would sing, I would beatbox. And then the school caught mono. I don't know if you guys know what mono is. It's called the kissing disease. And when you eat, drink, and sleep, like at the same place with everybody else, it's hard to not get it. I don't know, I'm a unicorn, I didn't get mono, but everybody else, It was 12 members of Soulful Voices, and about 4 of them had gotten mono. And the 4 of them were the alto section and one of the sopranos. And we had to do a rendition of Wade in the Water the next day for this huge church organization, really important gig. Hope was like crazy worried. And we were at the rehearsal. I came, I was like ready, my lips, you know what I'm saying, ready to beatbox. And Hope was, can you sing? And I said, I don't know. She said, man, I don't know. And I was like, anybody ever asked me to sing, Hope, I beatbox. I do. You know what I'm saying? And she was like, try. She was like, just sing after me. Just sing after me. So she goes, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. And I started shaking my face. And I said, wade in the water, wade. And she said, ah! Louder! You got to sing like your ancestors gonna hear you or something, because this is spiritual. Like Harriet Tubman spiritual. And I said, oh, fine. So I took a deep breath. And I closed my eyes. And I said, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. And I opened my eyes, and Hope was beaming. And I said, is that okay? And the rest of the group said, was that okay? And everybody jumped on me like I had like shot the buzzer beater, you know, at the end of the championship. And we ended up hitting the gig the next day, and I learned that like I could sing. And I think in that moment, I felt more free than I had ever been. As a small person that had never taken up space, that had never bellowed out of my chest, it was like somebody had ripped me open and stuffed sunshine in me. I had just never been so joyful and never been so ready to continue living. And so I continued to sing. And I continued to beatbox, and I continued to be a part of Soulful Voices. And one of the Hope was about to graduate a couple years later, and she was, working on this last song she'd ever teach us. And I asked her, I was like, hey, why did you ask me to sing that day? I was like, there was a lot of people you could have asked to sing. Like, you could have did the altos yourself, like you're a classically trained singer. And she said, I knew you could sing. She was like, but I also knew you would spend your whole life being afraid of yourself and beating yourself up because you thought that the only thing that dark skin was good for was something bad. And she said, I wanted you, she said, you just seemed so caged all the time. And I wanted you to be free. And I was. And so I thanked her, we talked, and I ended up being the director of Soulful Voices and creating the first Black History program that we had during Black History Month. The soundtrack was all Soulful Voices. And I ended up changing the way that my school looked at Black people, even though there was only 16 of us out of 250 every February. They still, to this day, have a Black History Month celebration in honor of all that Hope inspired me to do and all that I was able to be. Hope passed away in 2009, but she's still one of my very, very best friends, and one of the reasons why I sing and speak today, and a big reason why I am big, bold, confident, Black, and free. Yeah.